My name is Matthew Mead. I'm a member of the faculty of Medgar College of the City University of New York. And I'd like to question you on your voucher system. It seems to me that fundamentally it assumes perfect competition, meaning, of course, that you have a homogeneous product that's being offered to consumers.
Not at all.
I'll continue. That, in fact, there are large numbers of sellers and buyers, and those kinds of things. And additionally, it seems to me that what is not considered, at least you gave very short shrift to, the fact that racism, which of course is an aspect that economic theory has not developed a well-developed theory in order to handle, is sort of like assumed away in your model. Let me suggest that at the higher level, we have, in fact, the voucher system, as you sort of said earlier in your speech. That is that anyone can choose any of the private universities and or state colleges and to go to. However, in this society where racism does exist, what happens is that individuals whose abilities are retarded by environmental racism, etc., do not have the same choice and to go to, for example, the Harvards and the Yales and Columbia, as, for example, other students who may not be so afflicted. So what can possibly happen, though, even though under your system, you might have an increase in the general level of scholarship among all students. If, in fact, there's no relative change within this system, you still have the situation that employees are obviously going to take the best, which is going to be a white upper strata, leave the rest, which is going to be a black and minority lower strata. And, in fact, even though all scores, board scores and everything have raised, the level of marginal product has to be met, which is also now higher. You, in fact, haven't solved the problem. So, again, even though it's possible to have an increase in the general level of schooling in the system, you can still be left with the fundamental problem that the people who finish relatively on the lower level are going to be left with their problem. And I think that your voucher system doesn't appeal to that. And we see, for example, now University of California at Davis, for example, the famous Bakke case, where a 35 or 38-year-old man is suing because some students with lower scores entered and so on. So again, to conclude, the fact that the institutions themselves also have a choice in the matter. It's not just the consumer. The producer, the school, can decide not to accept the student if, in fact, he's filled up his quota with the best of students.
Well,
so your voucher
examine.
system, although it might, as I say, make marginal changes, is not a panacea, and it should not be.
Of course it's not a panacea. There are no panaceas. But in the particular terms you're raising, you've got the situation exactly upside down. In my opinion, there is not a single thing you could do in this world that would do more to improve the condition of the black people who have in the lowest income classes, of the black people who have been most affected by discrimination. There is not anything that you could do that would be more effective than the voucher scheme. Why? Because as I said to you before, and I challenge anybody to deny that there's no respect in which the black in the slum is more deprived than in the quality of schooling he can get. He's much worse off in that respect than he is even in the quality of housing he can get, than in the quality of the automobile he can buy, in the quality of the job he can get with given education. I agree with you that the poor educational qualifications have had further effects carry through life in leading him to have few opportunities to improve his economic conditions. But if we want to improve his economic conditions, we want to enable him to be a more productive, a more valuable, a more useful person. And the way to do that is, first of all, to improve his schooling. And how do we improve his schooling? The only effective device that there is for improving his schooling that anybody has suggested is to give the parents more control, to introduce the competition and the drive of private market to improve the quality of the schooling that is available to them. Now you say, I assume perfect competition, I assume, those are all words. I don't assume anything of the kind. I assume that you have a world of the kind you have. In this world of the kind you have, you do not have perfection. That's for the next world. We'll have to wait till we get there, and we don't look forward to it very much. In this world, you have imperfection. The question is, how do we have the least imperfect world? We're not going to eliminate all problems. We're not going to eliminate feelings of racism. Of course not. But we can try to follow policies which will minimize their adverse effects. We can try to follow policies which will give those people who have a desire to improve their own conditions, who have no prejudice, who want to hire people. We want to have a society in which they have the greatest opportunity to do so. By introducing competition, by making it possible to have a variety of different schools and different choices, you say, well, just consider what would happen. If the parents in Harlem, each one of them separately, had the possibility of disposing of $1,500 per child per year for the schooling of that child, do you mean to say that there wouldn't be a flowering of schools of all kind? I'll bet there are a dozen people in this room who would set up schools to try to meet that demand. Look at what's happened with those small private schools that have been set up under tremendously difficult circumstances. If I go to the other end of the country, if I go to Oakland, California, there's a small preschool school in the suburbs of Oakland set up by the Black Panthers in California. It's the most effective preschool school that there is around there. It's done a better job than any other of the schools in giving the kids who come to it an opportunity really to get an education. So I'm pleading your case, sir. You really, if you'll pardon me, you are repeating in your words formulae you've learned. You are not thinking for yourself.